and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all very well this here Wednesday. Halfway through the week, guys. You can do it, a little bit further to go. Today's video, I am going to be talking about my progress in the Reading Women Challenge. I will link the website and all the details of the Reading Women Challenge down below. This is the first year I've taken part in the Reading Women Challenge, which is a challenge which encourages you to read more women. I mean, I hardly needed encouragement for that. I read a hell of a lot of women. But it has a whole host of prompts, 24 prompts in fact, with 4 little bonus prompts, which encourage you to read more diversely and to read different genres and from different women, from different ethnic backgrounds that you wouldn't ordinarily read, etc, etc. Yeah, as I said, this is the first year I've done this, and I had such a lovely time on the run up to New Year, making a list of all the prompts and looking at books that I was potentially going to read for this prompt. And we're halfway through the year now, so I just wanted to check in to see how I was getting on with it. And if any of you guys are taking part, for you guys to tell me how you're getting on with it as well. So as I said, there's 24 prompts plus 4 bonus prompts. So out of the 24 prompts, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 out of the 24, which is fantastic. And then out of the 4 bonus prompts, which are 4 authors that you should read works by, there's I've done 2 of them. So this is a video where I'm going to talk through the books that I've read for the certain prompts. I'm going to mention the prompts, talk about what I've read, and if I haven't read anything for them yet, I'm going to talk about what I plan to read for that prompt. So yeah, I thought it would be nice to have a little chat about this, check in. You can have a chat. Even if you haven't heard of the Reading Women Challenge before, I'm going to be going over a whole host of books that I've read so far this year. So yeah, the first prompt was long listed for the JCB Prize, and I read A Burning by Megha Majumdar. Now let me tell you, I'm going to be editing, Lauren. You've got your work cut out. There's going to be pictures ahoy here, because a lot of these books I read on my e-reader that I got out from the library, including I think I listened to the audiobook of A Burning by Megha Majumdar, and I thought it was going to be really great. Now, a lot of these, I've read 103 books this year so far, and we're just halfway through June, so there's going to be a lot of things that haven't quite stuck as much as other books. And I remember this book, I thought I was going to really love it, and I didn't. It's about an accident on a train in India, and it's also about politics and things like that. I just didn't love it, and I thought I was going to really love it. And I've made a promise, a pact to myself this year, that I wouldn't give any book that I found forgettable more than 2 stars, which is why I gave this 2 stars. And as you can tell from me talking about it, I found it a bit forgettable. So that's just my opinion. A lot of people love this book, but yeah, that's what I read for the long listed for the JCB Prize prompt. Next up is author from Eastern Europe, and I haven't read a book for this prompt yet, but I do have lined up Catch the Rabbit, which is a new release, came out in May this year, by Lana Bastazic, and this is about a friendship and a road trip that these 2 friends go on, Sarah and Leia, yeah, they go on a road trip, and I feel like I'm going to be excited about it. It's got a tagline on the front here saying Lewis Carroll meets Elena Ferrante in a Balkanised wonderland, and the author is Yugoslav born, so yeah, Eastern European author. Looking forward to it. So that's what I've got planned, and I've had that on my TBR a couple of times this year and haven't got round to it yet. Then about Incarceration. Now I've got 3 options for this, and I was wondering if maybe you guys could tell me if you've read any of these and if you think I'm going to prefer one over the other. So the first one is Orange is the New Black by Piper Kerman, which is, I'm familiar with the title of that because of the TV series. Then The Mars Room by Rachel Kushner, which was shortlisted or longlisted for the Women's Prize not so long ago. And then Inside This Place Not Of It by Robin Levy, and I've seen that mentioned quite a few times on BookTube. So if any of those you've read and you think would be better than any of the others for the prompt about incarceration, do let me know. But those I've got lined up. I don't own any of them yet, but yeah, let me know what you think. Next one is Cookbook by a Woman of Colour. So this is about reading a cookbook by a woman of colour, but let me tell you, I'm going one better. I'm cooking my way through a cookbook by a woman of colour, and that's East by Mira Sodha. And this is 120 vegan and vegetarian recipes from Bangalore to Beijing. As you can see, I'm doing pretty well with this. Now, I've been on a bit of a hiatus of this. Go on, focus. I just want to show what the pages look like. No, my face is in it. Anyway, take my word for it. I've done, I would say, probably about half. But yeah, I've been working through this and doing very well. There's been majority good stuff, a few things that were rank. For example, temper. David and I did not have a good time with temper. We thought it was revolting. This pumpkin malai curry, absolutely delicious. There's next up, I think, because as I said, I've been on a bit of a hiatus of cooking from it, but I will return to it, and I'm going to get this done the year. The reason I went on a bit of a hiatus is that I had, it's actually open on this page now, so this is fate. I ate white miso ramen with tofu and asparagus, and I made it, and that night I've never been so sick in my entire life. Even all the times when I'd be like hungover. When I was hungover, I was a big puker. But this, I was so unwell after eating that. I don't know if it was the salt or the soy or the miso or anything. It frightened me of making stuff for a while. So I need to get back into it. And I think I'm going to start with, it's even got like sweet stuff in, which I've made a few times. I've made quite a lot of the sweet stuff out of it. I'm going to start with one of the biryanis. Oh, these were really nice as well. Seeni sambal buns, which are onion chutney in like a pastry bun. Sri Lankan, that recipe is. All delicious. But I think next up, there's that awful tempeh, which we didn't like. Tempeh with pak choy. I'm going to make a biryani. They've got, let me find them. Where are they? Pilau, sorry, I'm gonna make a pilau. So they've got seasonal pilaus, and you know I love a seasonal thing. So I've already made the spring pilau with asparagus, fennel and pea. Next up, I'm going to make the summer pilau with tomato, coconut and cashews. So yeah, I will make that soon. But yeah, so that's an ongoing project, and it's going quite well. So that's the plan with that. Then Protagonists, Older Than 50. Oh, actually, I have got this book, but it's up here. And that's Of Women and Salt by Gabrielle Garcia, which is a book I read earlier this year and very much enjoyed. It's actually it's sort of got two, there's many women that are sort of two women that are the protagonists within this book, and one of them was over 50, so I counted that. But I have read a few books this year with protagonists over 50, but that's the one that stood out to me. It was a Cuban book, which I really enjoyed, and I had a really good time reading it. So yeah, that I very much enjoyed. I gave that 4 stars. South American author in translation, and I went for the Chilean author Isabel Allende, which you won't even believe it, like I'd never even heard of her, and she sold millions and millions of books. Like, so many of her books have been translated, and this was The Japanese Lover. I listened to the audiobook of this, again very forgettable for me, maybe, and it's one of her more recent releases. Maybe people have favourites. If you've read anything by Isabel Allende and you really feel like I should be reading more of hers because that wasn't her greatest one, then do let me know. But yeah, I didn't have a great time with that book. And then the next prompt was to reread a favourite, which I did, and I reread Love in Colour by Bolu Babalola, which I read last year and absolutely loved. These are mythical and folklore retellings told which centre a woman and a woman of colour. There's so much sensuality and just like atmosphere and description and everything built in these stories, and I absolutely loved it last year when I read it, and I listened to the audiobook of it this year, which was even more fun. And there's actually, so a lot of them are based on folklore, as I said, and fairy tales and myths and legends and stuff, but there's a couple of original stories that Bolu has made herself, and her and her mother narrate a couple of those, one of those original stories at the end, which was just lovely. So yeah, I would highly recommend if you haven't read that already. Next up is Memoir by an Indigenous woman. Now I do have Heartberries by Therese Marie Malhot, but a couple more I had on my list, so I probably will read this, but a couple more I had on my potential, and let me know if you've read any of these two that I'm going to mention. The Woman Who Watches Over the World by Linda Hogan, and Blonde Indian, an Alaskan Native Memoir by Ernestine Hayes. I've read a few books set in Alaska, and I do very much enjoy it. I enjoy a book set in cold climes, guys. So yeah, maybe that as well. So if anyone's read either of those. But yeah, I've got Heartberries here, which is Therese Marie Malhot, her notebook, and she begins to write her way out of trauma after growing up on an Indian reservation. And I've heard this is sort of like angry and beautifully written, and sort of, it says here, vulnerability and rage, sexual yearning and artistic ambition, swagger and self-mockery, a new model for the memoir. So very much looking forward to reading that as well. Then prompt 9 was by a neurodivergent author. So I read The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. Now, when I sort of went to this, I thought, oh yeah, I'll read The Bride Test, I think, came out this year. So I heard about that first and then didn't realise that it was in a series. So we actually read The Kiss Quotient for my Patreon book club in February, because the theme was love because of Valentine's Day. I did not enjoy this book. I gave it 2 stars. I don't enjoy reading romance, and at the beginning of the year I tried to read quite a lot of romance in a sort of like, there's all this sort of diverse romance and a lot of representation and stuff in there, and it just turns out I just don't really like romance books. So yeah, so you might find that there's a few books in here that I've read that were romance books that I've tried to that I've read in hope that I can change my mind around, but I didn't. But yeah, Helen Huang is neurodivergent, and this book has a neurodivergent main character as well. But yeah, it just didn't do anything for me, as a lot of romance books do. Next up is a crime novel or a thriller in translation, and what I plan on reading for this and I've got it out from the library on my e-reader so many times and had to send it back because I've just left it too long, but I will read it in the second half of the year, is Blood Song by, oh, I've just put the surname here, Gustafsson. It's translated from French. I don't know much about it apart from it's a translated crime or thriller novel. Another few I had down here were The Silence of the White City by Eva Garcia Sanz de Urteri, which is translated from Spanish. I also had Confessions by Kanae Minato, translated from Japanese, and Snare by Lilia Sigurd. I'm rubbish with Icelandic pronunciations. Sigurdardottir. And that's Icelandic. So I had those options as well if anyone's read any of those. But yeah, I think I'm going to go for Blood Song, translated from the French. And then the next prompt was about the natural world, and I read The Outrun, a memoir by Amy Liptrot. Oh, I loved this so much. So this is Amy's memoir, set like told living in remote Scottish islands, but also about her overcoming drug addiction, and she gets a job working for the RSPB and does like works on a bird project that they've got, and her talking about community and about the way that these small islands, she lives in a whole host of small islands, and then what nature's like on those small islands, and I just loved it. She's got another one coming out this year, I've been told, so I'm really looking forward to reading that as well. Oh, I loved it. I forgot how much I loved that book. That's really nice when I remember how much I really liked something. A young adult novel by a Latina author, and actually this was a reread for me, so I'd already read The Poet X by, oh god, I've forgotten what they're called, what the name of the author is. Oh no, why can't I remember that? Who is that by? I'm sure you're all screaming it at me. Oh god, and it's not even on the shelf. Sorry, I can't remember that. She also wrote Clap When You Land. Anyway, I read that not last year, maybe the year before, and her novels are written in verse, and I always meant to revisit it as an audiobook, because I imagined the delivery, and I was right, the delivery was fantastic. God, that's really annoyed me that I can't bloody remember the name of that author. It's just gone, you know, when you're trying to grasp something and it's just gone. But yeah, so I listened, and I'd been putting it off listening to it because, and I'm sure maybe other people have this as well, if you're using one of your Audible credits for a book that's like 3 or 4 hours, I think, oh god, I'm not getting much bang for my buck in terms of that. But I just went for it, and I am glad I did, because I really enjoyed the performance of it by the author herself. Elizabeth Acevedo, got it in the end, didn't I? Well done, it was deep down in there, but yeah, that's what I read. A poetry collection by a black woman, and I read My Darling from the Lions by Rachel Long. I'm still embarking on a journey of poetry, just it being not even to the point where I want to make myself love it. I just want to make it more accessible for myself, and more sort of less intimidating. I mean, less intimidating, because whenever I look at things, I think, oh, should I be getting more from this? Why aren't I getting more from this? Oh, does this what this means? Is this what this means? So yeah, I think I gave that 2 stars, but I think that's mainly a reflection on myself and my relationship with poetry. A biracial protagonist is the next prompt, and I read This Train Is Being Held by Ismay Williams, which is a love story, a YA love story, where the two protagonists meet on a train, and a lot of their relationship plays out on this train. They're both from different classes, and they've both got different sort of dreams, and yeah, I thought it was okay. I read it on my e-reader. Next up is Muslim middle grade novel, and I read Rumaysa by Radia Hafisa, which is a Muslim retelling of 3 fairy tales: Rapunzel, Cinderella, and I can't remember the last one. I haven't got the book because I lent it to my mother afterwards, and she quite enjoyed it, and she's actually now lent it to my sister. This was a new release this year, and yeah, when I was reading it, I was like, is this going to fill the brief, because it's short stories, but actually in a bigger sense, the retellings have they work more as sort of parts, because one character, Rumaysa, features throughout. Yeah, I read a advanced reader's copy, and I think the finished book looks beautiful, and I think it would be well enjoyed by many middle grade readers and others. Next up, a queer love story, You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson, I read. This was one that I'd heard so much hype about, and I was actually really pumped to get started on it, and again, it just fell a bit flat for me. I just find, I don't know if I'm much of an insta-love person, which is weird because I'm quite an impulsive person myself. But yeah, it didn't work for me in the same way that the other romance books hadn't worked for me, so yeah. I gave that 2 stars as well. About a Woman in Politics, hurrah! I read The Truths We Hold by Kamala Harris, which is weird actually, because that feels like I read that last year. Kamala Harris, she's a woman in politics. She's vice bloody president of the United States. I really enjoyed this audiobook, narrated by Kamala herself, talking about her background all up until the point where she decides to, oh, I've been going up my neck there, haven't I, when she decides to run for vice president. And what I was delighted about, and I often find this when you listen to non-fiction which is read by the author, is her warmth came across so much. She was sort of like chuckling as she was reading stuff about, she has fit a lot fucking in her life, let me tell you. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. I gave it 4 stars. Rural setting, I had a few up for this, and actually I ended up not reading any of the ones that I had put down. So I put down Heaven My Home by Attica Locke, which is the second in a crime series set in a rural setting in America. All the Birds Singing by Evie Wilde, Flight Behaviour by Barbara Kingsolver, but I ended up reading Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller, which I think has been one of my favourite books of this year, and I would never have even read had it not been for the Women's Prize long list, and now the book has actually been shortlisted. It's on the Women's Prize shortlist. This would work as well for a book with a protagonist over 50, because this tells the story of a set of twins living in rural poverty when their mother suddenly dies. And them having to make the very most of their life when they've been living very insularly, and not really talking to sort of other people in their community, and not really having, it's not so much social skills, like I've forgotten her name. What is her name, the protagonist, who I really liked so much, and I can't remember her name now. She can't read, and her twin brother isn't particularly good with money, and they're just trying to get by after the death of their mother. But I really enjoyed it. I thought the description and everything was amazing. And why can't I remember her name? I've just got in from work. It's probably not the best time to film a video, but here we are. Next up is a cover designed by a woman, and I've gone for The Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill, and the cover is designed by Hilary Thompson, and this is a beautiful graphic novel about the art of tea, and it's set seasonally. It's so gorgeous. And people that look after these little tea dragons, which are just the cutest thing ever, and they grow certain tea leaves, and oh god, everything about it is just adorable. I actually need to get on to reading more of these because I had such a lovely time reading this, and I think there's 3 or 4 out in the series now. I lent it to my sister instantly, and David keeps saying he's going to read it, but he bloody hasn't yet, so maybe I'll get him to do that soon. Next up is Arab Author in Translation, which I don't have yet, but I do have 3 sort of on my short list. The first one is The Queue by Basma Abdul, then I've got 32 by Sahar Mandoor, or Always Coca-Cola by Alexandra Chirata. So yeah, if you've read any of those, do let me know. If you've read another book, or if you've got a favourite Arab author that I can read in translation, let me know. Next up, by a trans author, I've got The Subtweet by Vivek Shreya. It's actually on top of my on here because I really enjoyed it. It's about a burgeoning friendship between a sort of mainstream artist and an indie artist, when the mainstream artist covers one of the indie artist's songs, and their sort of like friendship being looked at in the public eye as it's sort of conducted over Twitter to start with. It goes much deeper than that, but I found it very interesting. I hadn't really read anything like it before, and yeah, I enjoyed it very much. Now next up is a fantasy novel by an Asian author. I've got 2 novels like penned for this, like potentially, but weirdly I own other books by those authors. So I first have Sorcerer to the Crown by Zen Cho, but also I have Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho, which came out in June this year. I don't know if this would count as fantasy, but I've just remembered I got a fantasy book sent to me by the publisher not so long ago. Oh, I think I've answered my own question. 2 seconds. Sorry about my bum. Well, it took me a lot longer than I thought, but I did end up finding it. So yeah, I had Sorcerer to the Crown by Zen Cho in mind, but I've also got Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho. But I don't know if that would count as fantasy. And then Legend by Marie Lu. But I bought David Warcross by Marie Lu not so long ago, but this reads at the back sort of much more like, because I don't read much fantasy, I don't really know what sort of what counts, and that reads to me more as sort of like sci-fi. But anyway, She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which isn't out until July. I'm sure this is fantasy because this is a stunning queer reimagining of the dawn of the Ming Dynasty. It says here, Mulan meets Song of Achilles. I guess I'm just looking on the back for the word fantasy, but I'm absolutely certain that would count, and actually I think that's what I'm going to opt for rather than one of the other 2 that I'm not so sure on. Then the penultimate prompt is non-fiction focused on social justice, and it was a re-listen for me, and that was Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall. I think this is a great non-fiction book about feminism and intersectional feminism, and how white feminism is very damaging. And it also sort of made me realise that a lot of issues that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of as being feminist issues really are, like gun crime, that's a feminist issue, like poverty and food poverty and things like that. Yeah, I would really highly recommend. I've actually got the book of it. The publisher sent it to me this year as well, so I think I might get around to reading it face to face. What's this little bit going down here? And then the last one is a short story collection by a Caribbean author, and I read Flying Plantain by Zalika Reed Benter, which I very much enjoyed. And actually, it's one of my favourite. Again, I'm not quite as intimidated by short stories as I am by poetry, but this is more of my favourite sort of short story collection in terms of they're all interlinked, so it almost reads like a novel, but I very much enjoyed that as well. And then there's 4 bonus prompts at the end, which are 4 authors, which you're asked to read any of their work, and the 4 authors are Alexis Wright, and I haven't read anything by her at the moment, and I've got here written down here Carpentaria. I think what I was finding is that Alexis's books were quite difficult to get hold of in the UK, so I might have to look further afield for getting my mitts on one of those. Then Tizitsky Dangaremga, I read Nervous Conditions, which is the first in a series of their books that have just come out and are being published over here. Weirdly, I found the third book, This Mournable Body, completely accessible. It was on Audible, it was in my library, things like that, but I wanted to read the series as it was. So yeah, I got around to reading, so I've read one of the books by Tizitsky Dangaremga. Then Layla Abalayla, Elsewhere Home is the book that I'm going to read. Again, that's one of the ones that's been flying in and out of my my e-reader library Libby app. I get it and then I don't read it and stuff, so I will get around to reading that. And then Yoko Ogawa, I read The Memory Police, which I really enjoyed, and I actually will go ahead and read more books by Yoko Ogawa. I really enjoyed The Memory Police, which is a book, weirdly, I watched a video today where I saw Jen mentioned it as well, so it seems weird that I'm talking about it, I'm hearing about it and talking about it twice in one day. It's set in Japan, where items cease to exist. So one day you might wake up and birds don't exist anymore and all of the birds have disappeared, but also you don't know the word for birds as well. I think that's the exact example Jen gave, or maybe she said roses. I can't remember, but yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I actually think I would really enjoy much more of Yoko Ogawa's writing, so I will definitely be picking up more by her. So yeah, that's how I'm getting on with the Reading Women Challenge. I've been really enjoying it, and as you can see, I've still got some good stuff to read for the rest of the year. Are you taking part in the challenge? How are you getting on? Have you taken part in it in the past? I will definitely be taking part in it in the future. I've just had such a great time with it, and I've read some books that I never, like for example, romance books and stuff like that, I never would have picked those up. I mean, it didn't work out for me, but I just feel like I love these sort of like year-long challenges which have got so much room for maneuver and thinking you're going to read something and then ended up reading something else and chatting about them with you and stuff like that. So yeah, really am having a lovely time doing it. Let me know how you're getting on. Let me know if you've read any of the books mentioned or if you're planning on reading any of the books mentioned, and I'll see you all again soon for another book tube video. Goodbye.